It is time for yet another Inside Carolina Scouting the Room. This time it is the running back. Sometime Ashley. That's Jason Staples. We are sponsored as always by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Go to East Franklin Street, get your swag, or go online if you can't get to Franklin Street and get your swag at JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Best in the business for Carolina stuff, and they sponsor these shows, and you get 10% off if you're a premium subscriber. Jason, the running back room, on a whole, you lose a guy like Omarion Hampton, who, let's be honest, or I'll be honest, try to be honest all the time.
That boy good.
When he was at Cleveland, he was Cleveland High School. He was really, really good, and it was difficult because they played against Clayton, and he would dominate. But then he committed to North Carolina, and I said, "Oh, okay, that's a good thing." And he was really good. Then he got hurt at Cleveland. Then he came back, and then he goes to Carolina. And that first year, he was okay. That second year, he was good. Last year, he was ridiculous. So how do you replace that? Well, Bill Belichick would love to have a guy like Omarion Hampton in the room. Now we have 3, maybe 4 guys we're going to talk about here. There are no Omarion Hamptons walking through that door, as we like to talk about. But just in general, talent base, before we get into the superlatives, your thoughts here. Don't compare it to last year. You can't do that because it's going to not look as good. But in general, portal pickups and everything on the whole, where do you think this stands?
You took my opening line. I was gonna paraphrase Rick Pitino just like that. But no, I mean, it's different. It's not, you can't lean on this room the way that you could last year. And last year, I mean, remember last year, not only did you have Hampton, you had Darwin Barlow going into the year, and he never actually even really played last year because he got banged up. But they would have been that much better with him as well, had he been able to get on the field. So they went into last season with that being the strongest room on the offense by a mile, and it showed. This year, I think you've got a good stable of backs. These are ACC quality players, but you don't have the can't miss, like that dude's an NFL player. Like that dude is going to play 10 years on Sundays if he stays healthy. You don't have the game-breaking kind of player that you did last year and that some other teams in the ACC have. Instead, this group is much more of a group that if you pair them with a solid offensive line that's going to be able to move the line of scrimmage a little bit and provide daylight, this is a group that I think can give you consistent yards between the tackles, can pound the rock, and be a good group that's going to help you be a physical football team and be able to run the ball in the conference. That's not nothing. The biggest difference is just that you're not going to see the 65, 70 yard guy busts through the line of scrimmage, breaks one tackle, and then just goes. You're not going to see that so much this year. You don't have the game-breaking elite talent that you did last year, but you got guys that have good vision. They've got good size and a nice mix of bodies there that I think you can get yards with if the offensive line plays well.
Yeah, we talked about the offensive line on the last show, and Jason's belief is that they're going to be pretty good. Omarion Hampton made a lot of guys look really good, and vice versa there. This will be a different unit. I think it's going to be more of a community or a committee and a community. By committee, you're not going to have one guy toting it, 95% of the time, but we'll see. And all right, Jason, let's get into it. The alpha of the group. We only got 4 guys to pull from. One guy's had plenty of, well, not plenty, but he's had some success at North Carolina, and you got a couple others, and then you've got a transfer. So who's your pick for the alpha?
For me, it's Davion Gause. He's the guy that's the returnee. He had 67 carries last year behind Omarion Hampton and handled himself well. I mean, Didn't put up Hampton numbers, but was not actually that far behind Hampton in terms of total yards per carry. 4.8 yards per carry, 3.57 yards per carry after contact, which is healthy, and was just overall above average as a freshman running back, and really handled himself well. Broke a lot of tackles. 13 missed tackles forced on 67 carries. That ain't bad. It's not elite, not what you're getting from Hampton, but really good. The contact balance, the lean, were good. Not quite as good when he took contact to his lower body, but ran through a lot of tackles when guys tried to take him at the waist or above, and really flashed good vision in especially in the zone game. Sort of a natural inside zone, outside zone runner, which is going to be useful for this particular offense that they're going to be running. Was able to also do some things with power in some gap scheme stuff. So liked what I saw from him. Caught the football well. The biggest thing that you're not going to get from him, as we mentioned already, he's a 4.65 probably would be my guess based on watching him. I don't think he's any better than maybe a very high 4.5. If I'm off a little bit, it's like 4.59, 4.60. If I'm being generous, he's not going to just take off and run for 70 all that often, like what you saw from Hampton, where Hampton was a threat to go every time he touched it. The acceleration is not like what you got from Hampton. He's more of a traditional kind of between the tackles, what you see a lot in the SEC. 5'11", 215, and gets the job done between the tackles without as much get up and go or burst and twitch that create big plays. But I think he can be a steady player and be a consistent player as long as the offensive line is okay, and can average 5 yards a carry for you, which is pretty good.
That is Davion Gause. Of course, Jim Hawkins, the famed Jim Hawkins photo there on your screen for Gause there. Let's go to the breakout, Jason. Another one of our superlatives, the breakout player here for North Carolina in the running back room.
To me, that has to be Benjamin Hall. He is, he's a guy that didn't play that much at Michigan. Pretty highly recruited guy, but 29 carries in 2024, 15 carries as a freshman in 2023 on the national championship team, and really didn't do much with those carries. I mean, last year, 29 carries for 2.4 yards per attempt. And, those were not against the best and the brightest that they played against. He just didn't generate a lot. But at the same point, when you watch him, you go, oh, man, the potential is there physically. I mean, he's listed at 5'11", 230, and look at him. On the screen right there, does that guy look like he's 230?
Not to me.
Not really. He carries that 230 deceptively. But then you see him, and he does run, behind those pads, and he is a load. The big issue is that he just didn't hit the right angles at times to be able to break those tackles the way that you would expect. 4 missed tackles forced on 29 attempts, just not enough for a big back like that. But I think a change of scenery and a little bit more in the way of opportunities may really do him well. I like the overall burst at his size that we see, and I think he can be a guy that probably becomes the 1B behind Davion Gause, but also taking some carries. I think, again, being a bigger back, being 230, that area, and also similar speed range as Gause. He's one of those guys that fits what they want to do. They want to be a physical football team that's going to wear you out. You go back to Bill Belichick has liked being on, having backs like that his whole career as a coach. I mean, going all the way back to Otis Anderson with in the days with Bill Parcells and the Giants. I mean, that's the kind of back that sort of fits the Belichick mold. And in a lot of ways, he's that kind of between the tackles power back. I think he is a guy that, again, doesn't dance, showed some good patience. I think he's a very natural zone runner. Still has a little bit to get to figure out in terms of the pace and changing his speed there a little bit. But I do think he's bursty through the line of scrimmage. I think he's actually got maybe a little more burst than Gause does. The long speed isn't great, but again, I think he's a guy that can flash. And the 2.4 yards per attempt last year probably goes to 4.5 plus, maybe even 5 yards a carry this year in the ACC. I think again he's probably your number 2 on the depth chart, depending a little bit on the health of the third guy that we're likely to talk about. But I like him. I like what we've got from him, and he's, I think the potential is there for him to be a solid player for Carolina this year.
That is Benjamin Hall of Michigan, transferred to North Carolina with the opportunity to get some run at running back. Let's go. Time to prove it.
I think you know who this is.
I think this is probably an easy one.
Yep, this is Caleb Hood, and the thing he's got to prove is that he can stay out of the training room. I mean, The thing is, talent has never really been a question for Caleb Hood. He's another guy that, 230 pounds close to. He's 220 plus. Listed at 220 right now, but he's been as high as 230 in his career. I think he's actually maybe a little faster than Gause. He's in the similar speed range. And if you go back, a couple years, you could see some of the big play ability going back to that App State game. You saw him take off, and he had something like, 76-yarder or whatever in that game. He's not Omarion Hampton when it comes to speed, to long speed, but he can run. And he's flashed the ability to break tackles. He's had 2024, he had 18 carries, but he averaged 4.83 yards per carry after contact. That's really good. And he's shown the ability to catch out of the backfield. He's shown a lot of the things that you'd like to see, the thick build, the burst, a lot of those things. But he's just never been able to stay healthy for more than a few weeks at a time. And as we've talked about, availability is the most important ability. And, you could make a case that with these 3 backs, if all of them were guaranteed to stay healthy, you might choose Caleb Hood to be the best of the bunch. But I just can't pick him to be the alpha or the guy that is going to be the breakout player until he can prove to me that he can stay healthy for a season. And so he's the guy with the prove it situation. But he is a guy that if he is able to stay healthy all season, I think this room is better because of it. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I'm not as optimistic. I mean, some guys just, for whatever reason, aren't able to stay healthy, and so far in his career, he hasn't been able to. But maybe some of the changes they've made in strength and conditioning can help him. Who knows?
Absolutely, and I think, maybe it's a hot take. I think they win the bowl game if they just go straight Wildcat with him from out of the gate. To your liking, the postseason exhibition game, if they go straight Wildcat with Hood out of the gate. But anyway, I agree. If he stays healthy, he's good, and you hope to see the young man get a full season under his belt healthy. You wish that for everybody, but Caleb Hood as your time to prove it. Moving on down the line, young buck to watch. I don't really know. We've got one guy we haven't talked about, and you weren't able to scout him because you don't have enough tape on him.
Well, I mean, I was able to watch the 10 carries that he had last year, and he did play and look good in the practice like the pro event.
Yeah, practice like the pro event. But and we're talking about Charleston French.
Yep, and he is the young buck to watch. 5'9", 205, a little bit smaller overall back, but another one of those guys that I think vision really sort of distinguishes him. And I think overall last year, again, his first year at Carolina, 8.4 yards per attempt. Not bad. And flashed in the practice like a pro event where he broke some tackles, was really elusive between the tackles, demonstrated, decent hands, was able to do some of that. And all in all, looked like a guy that is going to be ready to play if called upon. I don't think he's top 2 in the depth chart, but he's not a guy that doesn't belong in the ACC. I think he's a guy that if it winds up that they need him to be the guy, I think he's a guy that can be capable and you can win with. He again, the vision is there. There's good burst. He was able to slip a number of tackles in the spring. I just think again he's the youngest of the bunch, and I think probably a year away really from being in the position to be one of the guys that they truly depend on at this position.
That is Charleston French, young guy to watch. We talk about Mr. Consistency. I don't know, looking at snap counts, if you can really call any of these guys Mr. Consistency. But if you had to pick one, Jason, who you got?
It's Gause. I mean, he's the one guy that has produced with consistency when he's been in there. And, I think the others, each of them has something that sort of keeps them – there are some question marks. I mean, French is still young and hasn't really done it for 10 full carries. You haven't seen enough there. Benjamin Hall, the production really fell off at Michigan last year, and he hasn't proven it in the 2 years that he's there. Still some real question marks for him to do what he needs to do to demonstrate that he's ready to go. And then Caleb Hood has to stay healthy. So Gause is the guy that has been consistent, and I think he becomes Mr. Consistency in that respect.
There it is. We're talking with Jason Staples, scouting the running back room this time. That's Davion Gause on your screen. Let's get him off of there. Let's put our beautiful faces up again. Jason, as we close all these shows, I talk about Johnny T-shirt. You talk about where the room ranks. So where does this room rank for North Carolina across the board, the running backs?
Yeah, I mean, I like several of the guys in this room. But I do think there are other rooms in the ACC that you probably trade out with, and feel like you came out ahead. So it's not really a reflection of this being a weak room, but I don't think it's one of the stronger rooms in the ACC. I would put this maybe. There's 17 teams in the ACC now, including the Pacific Coast teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Notre Dame's got a better backfield. Clemson, I think, has a better backfield. Miami of Florida has a better backfield. I think Florida State probably has a better set of playmakers in the backfield, but they've got some guys that need to prove it. They're probably comparable level, but I think the freshman that they've got is probably better than anybody in this room. With the Chroma kid. I think you can go down the list, and this is probably somewhere around 10 or 11 in the ACC, somewhere in there. I mean, last year I think you could make a strong case it was number 1. This year, going into the season with enough question marks from Benjamin Hall and Caleb Hood in particular, I think you're probably 10, somewhere in the 10, 11, 12 range, sort of in that middle, just a little bit below the conference average in terms of your running back room going into the season. I think the ceiling is there for them to finish higher than that. So, maybe, somewhere between 5 and 8. But I don't think that this is a room where you look at it and you go, okay, those guys are special. Those are championship level running backs, the kind of guys that Clemson has had and some of these teams have had that have gone on to the NFL and have been dudes, or an Omarion Hampton type. They don't have that. And so I think that keeps you from being in that top quartile of the conference.
Agree with everything you say, like I normally do, but season starts on Labor Day Monday, and maybe one of these guys steps up to be that guy as the season progresses. That is Jason Staples. I'm Tommy Ashley. I always talk about Johnny T-shirt. JohnnyT-shirt.com is our sponsors. This has been Scouting the Running Backs. Jason has the full complement of scouting reports on the Tar Pit Premium message boards. If you've missed any of them, there's a great index thread as well. Next up for us, we'll talk about the tight ends or the wide receivers, and who everybody wants to talk about, the quarterbacks. But those are down the line. We shall get to them in due time. This has been Running Backs. Check out all the rest of them. Check out Jason's stuff. Check us out at Inside Carolina. Jason's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Tommy.